Let's get more insights on Macau gaming revenue from Aaron Fischer. He's head of consumer and gaming research at CLSA. So that's pretty interesting. That's a big surge in revenue from last year. Pretty major growth. I mean, is that something that's sustainable? Is it a one-off?
No, I think if we look back at the growth we've seen over the last 8 or 9 months, we've been seeing an average growth of somewhere in the vicinity of 80%. So we saw a bit of a dip during the end of June and also in the beginning of July during the World Cup. But we think the growth is sustainable, although once we get into August, the base gets much more difficult. So we think the growth will slow down to somewhere in the region of 30 to 40%.
Okay, so for the whole of this year, what kind of growth are you expecting year on year?
Yeah, well, consensus forecast is looking for about 50% growth year on year, which is a pretty big number.
And then next year, that's going to drop to what?
Drop down to about 25%. But just if we think about this 50% growth, it's actually off a pretty high base already, because the Macau revenues are already about 3 times the size of Las Vegas, so it's not due to the low base.
Okay. And the reason that we saw a drop-off during the World Cup was simply because people were betting on the games and not coming down to gamble in Macau, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bit of a drop-off during that period, but the growth we saw during the World Cup was still about 60 or 70%, so still very strong numbers. So
if I want to get a piece of that growth, which companies should I be looking at to invest in?
Okay, we actually have a positive view on the entire Macau sector. So we like names like Wynn Macau, Sands China and SJM. But right now we've seen a bit of an underperformance in Sands China. So this would be our top pick over the next 12 months.
Sands China is the top pick. Okay, let's talk about Singapore's move into the casino arena. It's just opened a couple of casinos. That helped its GDP grow by 26% in the second quarter. How's that going to impact Macau?
I don't think it's going to impact Macau too much, because if you look at the tourist arrivals into Macau, about 85% are coming from Hong Kong and China, and only about 5% are coming from Southeast Asia. So we don't see too much of a negative impact from Singapore. And in fact, Singapore is also doing very well in the last few months, although the market overall will still be just a fraction of what we're seeing in Macau.
So it's not going to be as successful or not going to be as big as Macau ever?
No, exactly. I think that if you look at Singapore, there's only ever going to be just 2 casinos in Singapore. So we're looking for gaming revenues in that market of about 4 billion next year, whereas in Macau is going to be about 27 billion. So just a fraction.
There's no danger of Singapore allowing that to get out of control then. Okay, well, let's talk about how much Macau has actually changed, because the international players who've come there, the international casino operators, they've really had to up their game. How does Macau now compare to Las Vegas?
I think Macau and Las Vegas are totally different in terms of the experience that people are looking for when they visit the locations. So if you look at Las Vegas, I think most of the people going there are looking for an all-round entertainment experience. And if you look at the revenues, about 60% of the revenues in Las Vegas are coming from non-gaming. Okay. Now that contrasts to Macau, where about only 10% of the revenues are coming from non-gaming. So you can see that the experience that people are looking for is totally different. So
the Macau gamblers are serious.
They're pretty hardcore in Macau, yeah, definitely. Well, if you look at the average bet size as well in Macau, it's significantly above Las Vegas. Okay.
Now, as far as the type of people that are going to Macau, you have the tourist gamblers, and then you have VIP clients. What's the kind of portion of the two?
Okay, so if you look at the VIP market, about 2/3, or so if you look at the overall market, about 2/3 is VIP, and that's described or defined by people who are betting using credits, whereas the mass market is the general players, like maybe like ourselves, that are using cash to play.
No one's going to bankroll my gambling, that's for sure. What about a VIP junket? I mean, how do you explain what that is to someone who's not familiar with gambling?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I think the reason why the junkets exist is because there's capital controls out of China. So if you're in China, you can only bring out 20,000 RMB or $5,000 each time you visit or exit China. So for those hardcore gamblers in Macau, they're going to want to gamble much higher amounts. So the junkets really facilitate the transfer of cash from China into Macau.
And the casinos make commissions on that?
The casinos don't make a commission, but they'll pay a commission to the junket operators, who then pay it to the players.
Okay, got it. Now, the most lucrative are the tourist gamblers, though. Is that right?
Exactly.
And so how do you get more of them down to Macau?
Well, I think what you need to do, or what we need to see in Macau, is an increase in capacity. So what we'd like to see is more mass market casinos opening in Macau, which is what we're going to see over the next 3 years. So what we've got opening at the beginning of next year is the Galaxy Cotai project, and then we've got sites 5 and 6 from Sands China opening towards the end of next year. And both these projects should add around 9,000 hotel rooms to overall Macau. Okay. So this should be a big booster to the mass market tourists.
Are they going to start to venture into the entertainment arena a bit more, do you think?
Well, I think some of the companies
Las Vegas-style shows down there?
We'd like to see that, but some of the casinos have already tried that. And there's been a Cirque du Soleil show that opened at Venetian a couple of years ago, and then one would argue that this hasn't been overly successful,
Right.
although the companies are still trying to do that. What we've got opening later this year is Melco Crown is opening a show called the House of Water Dancing, which is a water-themed show, which we hope should be successful.
I've heard about
later
that. I actually met one of the divers in a bar the other night in Hong Kong. He was telling me all about it. Sounds very impressive. Okay, thanks very much, Aaron Fischer from CLSA.